Rolling.
Alrighty.
All right, guys. We have a guest here, Mr. Cam, all the way from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Chris is too busy. He's got night court, which I didn't know courts were open at night, but apparently that's a thing. So
It was a show.
yeah. So we'll just jump right into it. I guess we'll get into the first game. That was Cooks versus McGee. So that's your game. Pretty low scoring.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of disappointment from your side. I mean, Trevor's team, I didn't have the highest hopes for anyway, but I don't know. The quarterbacks didn't come through for you this week, I guess is the main story here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the positive takeaway for my team on this is that I won with both of my quarterbacks shitting the bed. So, kind of got that going for me. Think that this was probably objectively the worst game of the week. There was a lower scoring matchup, but it was at least a close game. But just kind of a struggle fest on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, I guess I don't really have much else to say about this game.
Yeah, not much else to say on this game. Hey, you got to win. Keep moving on. So, I don't know. We'll see what you guys both end up doing. I know there was some potential trades going on, so maybe that'll end up happening.
Mr. McGee needs to find a second quarterback. And offered him a lifeline, and if he wants to reach out for that again in a couple of weeks, it will most likely still be there.
All right. Well, there you go, Trevor. Trevor, another person that couldn't do the podcast this week, so there we go. All right, on to my game. Disappointing loss. Usual week one loss for me. I don't think I've ever won a week one game here, but yeah, Biondi's team did good things. Biondi's back. I had him high in the power rankings, and I think I was proven right on that. Olave is a monster, and I think Biondi is right up there for best quarterback tandem right now. So that kind of pulled him through. But disappointing mostly for me, other than Ayuk going crazy.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And when we get to my rankings, I have Steve pretty high up, mostly because of his quarterbacks, and Bijan is also the truth. So I think he's probably like 1 or 2 win now moves away from probably being right there to win the whole thing. And how are you feeling about Justin Fields these days?
I mean, I've always liked Fields. I think he's a really controversial player. I don't know. Everyone hated on his last game. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think he had that bad of a game, but I don't know.
I feel like he falls in that category where he could probably have a very good fantasy year this year still, and go into the summer not knowing whether or not he'll still be the quarterback for the Bears. So, an interesting situation for a dynasty quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's had a pretty rough situation his whole career.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's just hard to evaluate where he's at. I mean, I thought this game was pretty good. I think he was like 65% on his passes and ran pretty well. So I wasn't too mad at the game, to be honest. But obviously they got smoked. So I don't know. But we'll see moving forward on him. I saw that you're not a big fan.
Yeah. I mean, I think him and Richardson are kind of similar situations. You know, they can score a ton of points. I'm more scared for Anthony Richardson because I don't think he understands that he's playing against grown men now, and he might die. So if that happens, that will make it difficult for him to score points. But outside of that, I think Steve's team's gonna continue to get better.
Yeah. To be fair, he is bigger than most of the defenders.
He is bigger than most of the defenders, but not all of the defenders.
No, not all of the defenders. Maybe not go after D tackles anymore, but hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he,
yeah.
he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I got let down by Swift and Lamb. I mean, I don't even want to talk about the Cowboys Giants game, so I'm ready to move
Yeah,
on if you are.
right. Yeah, but I think your hopes for Swift and hopefully Barkley as well are trending in the right direction after last night's game.
Yeah. So on to the next game. We have the soon to be marrieds. I think, and Kim is also a soon to be married.
Also soon to be married. This is true.
Yeah. So a lot of engagements in this league. It's pretty incredible. So congrats to everyone. But going to the game, this was our closest matchup of the week, I believe. We had
Yes.
66.52 versus 64.08.
A real barn burner, if you will. But
Mitch scoring 66 points with Patrick Mahomes on his team is an impressive feat.
Yes.
So congrats to him on the win anyway. Disappointing start for AJ Brown and Debo. I think brighter days ahead for Debo.
Yeah. I think both of these teams will have better weeks. So I really wouldn't be too concerned on either side of the ball. But I'd probably favor Lamb Chop. But
really, I think I'd go the other way. I'm pretty concerned with Lamb Chop's wide receiver group moving forward, especially if Hodkins starts missing games. I think he's looking kind of rough there.
Yeah. This is true. I'm more just excited about Kieran Williams than anything else.
A Kieran Williams truther, but not a Justin Fields truther.
Well, he's playing behind Cam Akers, who I think averaged about 1.1 yards per carry this week.
Yeah.
But
But he's still on the trade block. If anyone wants Cam Akers, he's available. Yeah, I don't know. I think Mitch, he has two quarterbacks-ish now. I don't know how much better Baker is than Josh Dobbs. Can't get much worse than 0.98 points. So, so Mitch got a win. I think he's sixth in the standings now. So, on to the next one. Congrats, Mitch, on your win. Next game, Skullcap versus Trent. Skullcap won very easily. I think until he has an injury, he's probably going to win very easily. But I guess he already had an injury, and Eckler's probably out this week. So maybe a more enticing matchup moving forward based on injuries. But scoring 125 with his quarterbacks giving him very little production is impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of the story of this entire season is I don't really know how Skullcap doesn't win until inevitably he probably doesn't, because that just seems to be how this league works. So we will see how that pans out, but I think there's brighter days ahead for Trent. I guess there's some concern about Josh Allen. Hopefully he bounces back at this point, but I guess from the end of last year to this year now, he's kind of regressed back to, his first or second year, just kind of wildly throwing the ball 100 miles an hour at defenders. So if he can get back to MVP form, I think his team will be fine. But if Josh Allen is old Josh Allen again, there might be some question marks that arise.
Yeah, definitely. Having Tyreek Hill always helps. His whole receiver core, obviously, Higgins isn't scoring 0 every week. I guess he just didn't set his lineup because Mark Andrews didn't play. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mac Jones apparently is good again. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
I think their defense probably isn't quite as good as it's been in the past. So in favor of Mac Jones, he's probably going to be chasing points a lot, especially playing in the AFC East. So maybe there's a spot for him there. Is he better than Baker? Probably, maybe.
Yeah, well, Baker's off the team now, so it doesn't really matter. I guess he has 2 quarterbacks.
This is true.
So
yeah.
I don't know. Hard decision for him in flex every week. I don't know. He has a lot of receivers, I'd say, that are similar. But I don't know. I guess Trent. Better days for Trent. Probably better days for Skullcap as well. So yeah, congrats on the win, Skullcap. And on to the next game. We have Big T versus Najee with the upset of the week this week. Kind of upset. Always hard to win when you don't have 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion. So, Chris, you have 6 first-round picks this year, so maybe you should go buy a quarterback. But if you don't want to buy a quarterback, that's also fine with me. Najee, very disappointing from Najee. I don't know. I don't have the highest hopes for him getting that much better. I mean, he's not going to do 4 every week, but I don't think he has the highest ceiling either.
He's also not going to play San Francisco every week.
That's also true.
He seems like one of those guys who hasn't fully recovered from an injury, like we've seen a lot of running backs do in recent years. So I don't know if Najee can find that burst that he had in his rookie year. Coming from a couple of my other teams, I hope he does. But I think Najee might be a bit of a question mark.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the biggest question mark for Chris, other than obviously second quarterback position. He has a lot of guys, depth of players on his team, so you could probably package that and a pick or something and get a quarterback if you wanted to. But not sure. But I think on the positive side, Big T had a big week. Started all his Packers and they all scored touchdowns. So that was nice. I don't know if that happens every week. I think Bears is a pretty easy matchup. Atlanta's not the hardest matchup either, so maybe another good week going forward. But yeah, I think Big T lives and dies by the Packers, so we'll see how they do this season.
Yeah, it's an interesting team to have. I think Love will get better once he gets Watson back, and if you believe the people in Green Bay, he could be the next Aaron Rodgers. I don't know about all that, but I think all in all, his team is very close. Just kind of looking at his roster before, I think if he can find a way to bring in like a real wide receiver 1, he might be able to kind of push for one of those like top 3 spots. But I'm a bit of a Russell Wilson truther this year. I think he's going to have a bit of a resurgence. So between him, Purdy, Stroud, and Jordan Love, I think he's got plenty of options at quarterback. Maybe ship one of those off, bring in a guy who can catch balls, and see what happens.
And he'll be on his way. Yeah, I think going into the year, I was much lower on Big T's team. I think that was a little before Aaron Jones, and with the health, obviously, we'll see. Not a lot of RB depth for him. I guess Brees gets better and better as the year goes on. But yeah, with Brees, if Aaron Jones stays healthy, obviously health's always a big deal. But yeah, he has a lot of talent at receiver, so we'll see. Like any other team, early days. And the last game of the week was, God, I don't know what this name is.
Yeah, I don't think that's his name
Juiced,
anymore. So
juiced by Justin Spine.
I think
Is that
he
not his
changed
team
it
name
to
anymore?
Downs with the Sickness.
Okay, so we switched to Downs with the Sickness. I like that team name better, mostly because it's
Much better.
easier to say. Um,
You never really want juice and spine in the same sentence. But, but
but a pretty good week for Taint. Nothing too crazy. I feel like this was a pretty low scoring week for teams in general. Not a lot of fantasy points going around the league this week. I'd say Tank Grease or Down with the Sickness was a pretty big favorite going in. I don't think he even had a very good week for what his team is, and still pulled it out. Big game for Tua. Herbert had a solid game. Looking at Danny's side, I guess you got to be encouraged by Roshan. Not much else there on Danny's side, but
yeah, I'm like trying to figure out a way that Danny's team kind of figures it out. Um, Probably a really good top two running backs, and I think the number one thing that I noticed, like looking through these teams before this, was that he started Smith Njigba, JSN, whatever you want to call him, who I think is mostly being started because he used a first round pick on him. But I think as long as Lockett and Metcalf are there, he's kind of unstartable, especially when you have Jordan Addison on your bench, who I think is basically Jefferson Light. So, and he decided to bench him again against me this week, so I'm happy about that. But I think if he can take him out of his starting lineup, he'll score a few more points going forward.
yeah, I mean, I think going forward, he should be starting Addison Flowers. I think at some point in Jigba gets involved in that offense. Also, I'm a little lower on that offense. I think they'll be a decent
Yeah,
amount worse than last year in general. So I think those other two offenses will be a little better and just more potential for points. Tony probably scores a little more. He has a lot of wide receiver depth. Maybe he gets another running back somehow, uh, or maybe he just holds on for a year and gets another good pick. I'm not sure which way he really wants to go right now. I'd say he has a decent amount of talent. He has some guys I think that are like I don't know. It seems like Rashad Penny's career's over, so maybe
yeah.
that's someone he moves on from. Hyatt
I
maybe
think he kind of.
doesn't play that much, so
I think Tannehill's got to be on the bench until he proves he can still play quarterback. So, but yeah, yeah, yeah. Just another
so
kind of mediocre week one game.
yeah,
But
so an interesting week. Danny scored a decent amount of points, but I think Taint was always going to win this game outside of a weird anomaly. So I think
yeah,
we can move on now. We could do the old power rankings. We both had the same person. I think everyone has a Skullcap first right now. I'd be interested to see if someone didn't have Skullcap first right now.
yeah,
Um, and we had the same second person. I mean, Skullcap, obvious reasons. He stacked at
yeah,
every position. Not even worth talking about.
yeah.
Down with the sickness, I think is a pretty clear second right now. I think he has to be the favorite for the best quarterback combo. I don't know.
I yeah, I'd say
I think you could say you have a. I think your team could say you have a ring in that hat. And I think
as long as two is playing, I think Herbert and two is a little bit better. But
yeah, I mean you'll have your weeks. I
yeah,
think Steve, given if you think Anthony Richardson's going to keep doing what he
yeah,
did last week, Steve could say he could throw his name in that hat as well. No one else is really close in quarterbacks right now, and quarterback in this league, I always think is the most important to just give you the most consistent points.
Yeah.
And then we have some discrepancies now. So you have Steve third, and I have fourth. So I'll let you talk about Steve since you like him even more than I do.
Yeah. So I think Beyondy's tank has worked very well so far and should continue to work out well for him. I am fiddling with my phone to pull up his roster right now. But I think Deshaun might be the most underrated fantasy player, mostly because I think most of us have a soul and don't really want to root for him, but he's probably going to score north of 20 points every week. Bijan, I think, is going to be right there. Olave should be really good. Lockett's consistent, and I honestly think TJ Hawkinson's going to be right there with Kelsey this year. Kirk wants to throw the ball, and if he gets somewhere between 6 to 10 targets a game, he's going to keep scoring 20 points. Had a down week this week, but had a good week last night, or had a good game last night. And if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy and keep rushing for touchdowns, I mean, I don't know. I like his team a lot. So
yeah, I like his team as well. I think probably one of the best quarterback combos, one of the best running back combos. I think that clearly goes to Skullcap at running back, but I think Beyondy's right behind him there. I like both of his running backs a ton. Only thing that could hamper Beyondy's running backs is that Arthur Smith's a crazy person and doesn't like to use his players. Yep. So he could just be like, Cordell Patterson, here you go, bud. But assuming he doesn't do that, Beyondy's team should be really good moving forward. I was high on him before the year, and through 1 week, I'm pretty right on that. I had you third. You have yourself fifth. I think with the quarterbacks you have, you'll just be consistent enough to be up there. That's why I had you there. Still relatively high on your running backs. No, they didn't have a great week last week. And then I think Diggs is huge. He's clearly wide receiver one. I think he's, if not in that tier with Chase, Jefferson, Hill, he's right there. And then DK's are really good too. So I think you still have a lot of pieces. And so that's why I had you third.
I'm probably more pessimistic about my own team than most other people would be, but I'm also just kind of bored and want to start blowing up my team. So
you have had the same team for a while, so
like basically since we started this league. So
yeah, so
back-to-back finals, lost both of them, and I don't know. So
if anyone wants some of Cam's players, apparently he wants to change his team up. But yeah, I think the surprise here though is Big T. Big T moved up a lot for me. I think I had him like 10th going into the year, and now he's 5th for me, 4th for you.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is his depth at quarterback. Should give him enough ammo to go get some really good win now players if that's what he wants to do. He has a first round pick in every year, so he has a lot of ammo moving forward and a lot of desirable assets that he can move around however he wants to, really.
Yeah, and I think I said it before, but the biggest question mark for him is just wide receiver. Breece Hall looks like he's fully healthy. I don't know if they're going to start ramping him back up to where he was last year, but you'd figure without Rodgers, that team's going to run the ball a lot more. So him and Dalvin might both be startable going forward. So I think if you can find that real wide receiver one, he's right there.
Yep. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. He has a lot of wide receiver 2-3s right now. If he could get a 1 in there with his running backs, I think he'll be in pretty good shape. Moving on. In 6th, I had Chris. You have me.
Yes.
So I guess we could talk about Chris. I have him, I'd say, probably a little high based on what his starting lineup is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think at some point he's just gonna have to go for it, and he's gonna sell some of those first round picks, and then his team's gonna be looking really good because Jacobs, he has Gibbs. If Najee turns it around, he has a lot of RB depth. Obviously Jefferson, Adams is big, so
Mm-hmm.
it's really if he goes out and buys a quarterback, he jumps right up there with Skull Cap as far as the way I
Mm-hmm.
see it. So I don't want to have him too low, but the way his team's set up right now makes it a little weird.
Yeah, and I gave him basically the same penalty I gave Miguel, which is he has a really good team, but right now he doesn't have a second quarterback, which is you're basically just giving away 10 points a week. So
Yeah.
if you can find a second quarterback, I think he's probably top three with the talent that he does actually have on his roster. But that's an until. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Uh, I had, I don't know. I guess you could talk about me since you have me higher.
yeah. So let me get into that. So I mean, I think I kind of cheated and gave you some credit for the game last night. Um, so, I mean, I still think you have a very good running back combination between Barkley and Swift. Um, I think a lot of people are going to run into Dallas's defense this year. As a Giants fan, I'm praying that's half of what it was, is that Dallas is just that good. Um, so I think Barkley's going to see better days. Um, I still think Waller's got a lot of potential. You're probably right up there with anybody in terms of wide receivers, and I think the combination of Fields and Cousins probably puts you, if not in that top tier with quarterbacks, right below it. So I think as the season goes along, you're going to be fine. And Stafford as a third quarterback, if he's healthy again, is solid. So
Yeah, I guess I'm a little scared of my RB depth. Uh, I mean, once Taylor comes back, I'm really not that scared of my RB depth, but
yeah,
that's a big if.
it's more of an if than a when. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, he needs to play a certain amount of games to get the year, so I'm assuming he's going to play at some point, but you never know. And then obviously, if people coming back in weird situations like that, you don't know where their mind's at. So a little worried about that. I have some picks
there's
if I
also the
want.
Jim Irsay factor, man.
Yeah,
Guy
yeah.
is mind.
I'm really hoping Zach Moss has a great week this week, and then Jim Irsay is just like, this guy's Jonathan Taylor. Let's just trade him. But probably unlikely. It's a little scared of Irsay, so I have myself eighth. I think that's relatively fair based on where I finished last year. Lost the first game. Yeah. In seventh, I had Mitch. I think you had Mitch decent amount lower. Okay, you had him ninth, so not that much lower. Mitch, I think getting a second quarterback was big for him. I don't know, he might have overpaid a little bit to go get Baker, who is an uncertain option for sure. I'm relatively high on Laporta. I guess it's fine. You need a little RB depth too, so maybe Warren starts getting some more work if Najee's not as good. I guess is his thought process there. But I think his team's looking a lot better than it did at the start of the year. Mahomes is a big advantage always. I'm not the biggest Rashad White guy. I'll die on that hill probably. Just don't think he's very good. But so need some help in the RB room. But talented receivers: AJ Brown, Debo Samuel, Herbert. I wasn't the biggest Herbert fan going to the year either, but I think he has enough depth, and I think just having Mahomes is a big advantage. So he could sneak into the playoffs and be a problem for someone.
Yeah, I think this was the toughest team for me to place, mainly because of Mahomes. Just hard to be down on a team that has him. But I'm with you that the running backs are kind of weak. I don't really believe in James Conner. I think Rashad White's a talented back, but I think Tampa Bay is just kind of terrible. AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert kind of occupy the same space in my mind, where they seem to have a ton of hype and people love them for fantasy, but if you kind of look at their track record, they're not historically great. Never really had big years, so until that happens, I don't really believe it. Debo, I think, should be fine, and I hate the Baker trade. You need a second quarterback, but Sam Laporta is gonna be fucking good. I don't know. But I don't know, because there's not a lot of good fantasy tight ends. He's played one game and looks like he's going to get targets on a team that's going to score points. So that might bite him in the ass 10 years from now. So that's pretty much all I have on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his team, I kind of get it. He did draft Kincaid and Laporta this year, so trading one seems reasonable. So I guess pick of your litter. You could have done Kincaid, you could have done Laporta. I have them relatively similar. Seems like you're a little higher on Laporta than Kincaid, so
half a fantasy situation, and I if you know a tight end in Buffalo that's had a good year, let me know. But that's kind of the deal with Kincaid. He's probably a better tight end in terms of actual talent, but I don't know where he's going to get the production from as long as Knox is there and as long as Josh Allen doesn't throw to his tight ends. So,
yeah, fair enough. So yeah, that's our take on the trade. That was our trade of the week this week. So we'll see if there's something that comes up next week. But moving on, you had Trent at 7. I have him a little lower. I have Trent at 10.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little lower on his quarterbacks, and then I don't think he really has a running back. He's really counting on someone getting hurt on one of those. He has a lot of handcuffs, so if one of those guys get hurt, I guess his running back situation turns around a little bit, but I'm not that big on Pacheco. Seems like they're going to use McKinnon and all those guys, and he's not going to be super startable, so I'm just really low on the running backs and not the highest on the quarterbacks. Why I have him that low.
Yeah, for me, I just think the rest of his positions kind of float his team. I think Tyreek might be the best fantasy player in the game this year. Josh Allen, I think, should get back to being Josh Allen. T. Higgins, if you believe in Mark Andrews, he's a top 2-3 tight end. And I think Mac Jones should be pretty decent as a second quarterback. So I don't know. For me, that puts him top of the bottom half.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it now, maybe I'd probably move him up past Trevor. I think I gave Trevor a little. I have Trevor at 9. I probably gave him a little too much credit there, partially because he won last year, which doesn't really matter. I think I also made that ranking before Aaron Rodgers broke his leg in half. So maybe it's a little different now, but I still think he could turn it around if he goes and gets a quarterback, which apparently he's not in a huge rush to do.
Yeah. Yep.
You had Sweetwater at 9. We already talked about him. The rest of the guys are, I don't know. It's just Pond Time and Lamb Chop. I think both of them are really in positions to win right now. I had Pond 11 and Lamb Chop 12. You had them 10, 11, and you had Trevor. You had McGee in 12th. Yeah, Danny's got a lot of assets, and I guess he's He's got, but not really win now assets. So maybe he turns it. I think if he trades some of his wide receiver assets for win now assets, he can move up here. But until he does that, I'll have him pretty low.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's good in the rankings. We can move on to the previews. I made the game of the week Big T versus Treewater. Just because I think it's the closest game for two teams that won last week. AJ Brown not doing anything probably hurts that prediction, but I don't know. How do you see this game?
I like Big T, just on the talent that he has, and if he can start the right wide receivers, I think Breece Hall and Aaron Jones is a much better running back combination. Drake London's going to be kind of interesting all year, but the fact that AJ Brown had a bad game already kind of helps him out there. I think Sleeper has Dobbs a little bit underrated right now with the projection of like 7.5. I think as long as Watson out, he's going to operate basically as their top wide receiver. Higbee's fine. Algier and Bijan might score 20 plus points a week. So I don't know if I would go with Purdy over Russ, but
yeah, it's a tough decision. I also agree with the Russ take. I think Judy being back helps out Russ a lot. Not sure. I mean, I'm not starting Judy this week. I don't think that's a good move, but I think it helps the offense move a little better than it did last week for sure. And then
Washington's defense is bad too.
Yeah,
so, that's
yeah. I mean, I could see Debo having a big week. I think Debo usually goes off against the Rams. That's a thing. I think it's an interesting move, the Smythe move in tight end for Treewater. I don't know if I would do that, but I don't know. Maybe James Conner falls in the end zone. I'm still gonna go with Big T. I'm a little nervous about it just because of Aaron Jones being injured. I don't know if he has a great replacement for him if he is out. I guess he has some serviceable guys though, so I'm gonna still roll with Big T.
I don't know if I knew that Durham Smythe was a person, but
scored a touchdown last week.
He did score a touchdown last week.
So go Durham Smythe. Hoping the best for you, Mitch. And congrats again on your engagement. But moving on to the next game, we have Skullcap versus Lamb Chop. This one was rated high because they both have won the league, but it is two teams on two very different parts of the league. Skullcap, probably the favorite to win the league, and not so much for Lamb Chop.
Yeah.
Looking at the teams, he still has Eckler in, and he's still projected to win by 20 right now, and Eckler is projected to get 0. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know. Kelsey seems like he's back this week, so I guess one amazing player is going to be out every week for Skullcap. Don't think it'll matter too much this week. Seems like Hopkins may be out for Lamb Chop too. So pretty rough injury luck for him to start the year. And I don't know. Seems like it might be a sell period for Lamb Chop, but I guess we'll see after this week what he decides to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you just go player by player, it's kind of a golf at every single position. So, I mean, there's not really too much to say. Maybe Michael Gallup has a big day. I don't know, but yeah, I'm pulling for you, but I really don't see a way that this game goes anyway besides skull caps, so not too much analysis to give on this one.
Gallup's dropping 20 on Sauce all day on Sunday.
Hey, there's some Sauce haters after that first game. I think he gave up like as many receptions as he gave up over half a season last year.
Yeah. Well, those people, everyone's allowed to have a take, whether it's a good take or not. That's a whole nother story.
There's nothing like week one overreactions, baby. That's what it's all about.
Live for it. But we can move on to the next game. Next game is Najee Time versus Trent. Again,
get back on track.
This is a good game, or it should be a good game at least. It's projected to be a close game. QB1, I think that's a fun battle. It's Lawrence versus Allen. Usually I give it to Allen, but with Lawrence playing to put up some points, so maybe I'm favoring Lawrence a little bit there. Running backs, I think, is obviously a blowout for Chris.
Yeah.
Just not much talent on Trent's side. And then receiver, I think, is going to be close. Jefferson already put up 19. Tyreek Hill probably going to put up at least 19 as well. Wide receiver 2 matchups, interesting. I guess Devontae, I know he was a little hurt this week, but it seems like he's playing. Trent, I think he has the advantage at tight end, and probably in the flex too. Seems like they're bringing Gibbs along a little slow here, and then going to give Trent the advantage at QB as well, at Superflex as well. So I think I'm just going to lean Trent just because he has 2 quarterbacks. And I think it's close enough everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably the most interesting thing for Chris to watch is Davante Adams going to be Davante Adams this year, whether he's assuming he's healthy. I think he got 6 targets, which is extremely low for him. Is it Jimmy G? Is it the Raiders just kind of not being a high octane offense this year? But if he is who he is, I think Chris is going to have a good team, assuming he gets a second quarterback. But I probably still lean his way mainly because of the running back matchups in this. I think Josh Jacobs gets right. I think Dameon Pierce gets right. Jefferson already had a pretty big day. I think Pittsburgh still got a tough matchup against Cleveland. I think they're a pretty underrated defense. So I don't know if Freiermuth really has a big day. So if Tyreek goes off, if Allen goes off, if Andrews goes off, Trent can win, but don't usually bank on 3 different guys going off at the same time. So I'm giving this one to Chris.
Yep. And Chris also gave it to himself, I guess.
Good for
Chris's picks for the last 2. Chris picked Sean and Mitch. So, all right. That's enough on that. Moving on to the next game, we have my game, Out of This League versus Down with the Sickness. Probably should have had this game a little higher. Probably a little unfair to review this matchup now, since I scored 54 points on Thursday. But I think this game is still a game. Obviously, I think that his team can definitely score enough points to still beat me. Derrick Henry probably has a bigger game. His quarterbacks could easily match the 28. Either of them could match the 28 from Cousins. Godwin and Ayuk, he probably has the advantage at receiver. I probably have the advantage in the flex and tight end. So I don't know. I think it'll be relatively close at the end of the day. I already have 54 points, so I'm just going to stick with me because I already know that happened. If I did this yesterday, I probably would have picked Down with the Sickness. But yeah.
I think we got pretty similar takes on this. Probably your biggest underperformer from week one had a massive game last night, which is going to help you out significantly. I think probably the biggest X factor for him in this is going to be Michael Pittman. Is he able to keep getting that kind of volume and production playing with Richardson? I think he had like 8 receptions, 11 plus targets, something like that. If he can be back to the guy he was a couple of years ago, where he's really a target hog and close to a wide receiver one, if not a true one, you know, that probably gives him that extra player. But he's going to have to make up a lot of points. So giving this one to you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I saw this weird chart. Apparently, Anthony Richardson only throws to the right side of the field. Like, literally every throw he made was to the right side of the field.
However, Anthony Richardson's career turns out, I think he's going to be one of the most interesting prospects of all time, considering he basically entered the NFL not knowing how to play quarterback. So if he pans out, he's going to be good. But I watched a couple of his games at Florida, and it was some of the worst displays of throwing a ball that I've ever seen in my life. So we will see how that goes.
Hey, he's off to a better start than Trey Lance, who I think was the same exact thing.
This is true. This is very true.
But going on to the next game, we have Stupid versus McGee. I think that Biondi should have a pretty easy week this week. I think he wins in a lot of spots here. I think he wins at quarterback and super flex. I mean, Trevor doesn't have a super flex. Puka may even be out this week, so he might have to start someone else. Flex, I'm saying, is even. Gabe Davis and Gus Edwards. I guess someone will score a touchdown out of those two, maybe. Maybe not. Hawkinson already scored 22. Big advantage for seeing that for Steve. And then I guess I still might give. I think receivers is relatively even. Olave and Waddle and Lockett versus Wilson. Zach Wilson's awful, so. Advantage at running back, Steve. So I'm going to roll with Steve. Already has 22 points from a tight end this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite skull cap, but it's close to that kind of deficit in this game after Rodgers went down. It's hard to really give McGee the edge in any category, I guess. I think Cleveland's going to continue to roll over teams until they run into somebody that's actually stout. I liked Pittsburgh going into the year, but they seem like they might have some big issues. So I think Watson's going to have a big game again. Yeah. Bijan's a stud. Probably the weakest part of his team is Kenneth Walker. And I don't even know if that's really a weakness. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one to Steve.
All right. Chris gave it to Trevor. I think that's an interesting take. But hey, maybe Chris will be right.
Hey,
it's okay to be wrong.
A couple of dogs, right?
All right. Last game of the week, No Pond versus you. Too many cooks. I think you should probably roll over him. I guess you got off to a good start. I didn't even realize Devontae Smith had that crazy of a game. But yeah, so maybe it's a closer matchup than I was expecting. I was expecting you to beat him in most of the positions. He probably has you beat at running back one. But other than that, I'm kind of giving it to you everywhere. So relatively short analysis. I just see you kind of beating him in most places.
Yeah, Zay Flowers scares me a little bit, but outside of that, I mean, Devontae did have a pretty good game for him. He could really use a second running back. I really want to like Pickens. I mean, I'm basically telling him this right now to take Najigba out of his lineup. I really don't think he's going to score points until something happens to either Lockett or Metcalf. And he has a couple of wide receivers he could start. Like I said, I would have started Addison after the way he played last week, but he didn't. So unless Zay Flowers goes nuts and Bryce Young figures out how to play in the NFL very quickly, I really don't see me losing this game, so I took myself.
And Chris also took you. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Unless you have anything to say to the people, Cam.
Not too much. We will see how my season goes. If I don't think I'm going to win by the trade deadline, I'm probably going to sell everybody over the age of 25 on my team. So on the lookout for that. But outside of that, yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.